I can go forward, but I really want to go backwards. If the car crashed and you're paused like with like the car at the tree, that's not really the problem. The problem is like, why did we veer off the road, which is in the past? And the debugger doesn't help you with that.
Hello, welcome to the DevTools-fm podcast. This is a podcast about developer tools and the people who make them. I'm Andrew, and this is my co-host, Justin.
Hey everyone, our guest today is Jason Lester. Jason is the CEO and co-founder of Replay, which is a magical debugging tool. Jason, would you like to give our listeners a little background on yourself before we dive into talking about Replay?
Sure. I've been thinking about dev tools for the past 10 years. I did Recurse Center back in 2012 and fell in love with REPLs like Pry, BPython. Gosh, the list is even longer than that. It's been a while. And I realized then that you can work on a REPL in the language that you're working in. You don't have to become some like crazy C++ language hacker to understand your Ruby software better or understand your Python software better. You just had to drop down one level and look at some Ruby code to understand your Ruby app. And doing that, I began to realize that I had all the tools I needed to understand my software, and I was just hooked. So I went on from Recurse Center to Etsy and started working on internal tools there in the browser. 2 years in, I realized you could actually work on the browser as well. Chrome is open source. Firefox is open source. Even Safari, which people say is closed source, is kind of open because WebKit's open source as well. And if you want to, you can pop open browser dev tools and inspect them as well. They're all written in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And as soon as I realized that you could work on browser dev tools, I was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. And Recurse Center had given me the tools to work on open source. So I was comfortable jumping into communities, talking to them about what they were doing. And there was the Chrome DevTools community with a bunch of folks within Chromium working on it, but very few folks in the open playing with it. So in 2015, I was the only one to jump in and be like, let's work on dev tools. Let's hack on the debugger. And it was all there and it was all possible. And it was really, really fun. So fast forward a year, I'm looking to join the Chrome DevTools team, realizing most of the engineers are in Russia, St. Petersburg. Not going to be easy. But the Firefox DevTools team, classically open source all around the world, going to conferences, really inviting. And they had a role where I could jump in and work on the debugger as they were rewriting the entire front end in React. Like, okay,
Oh, wow.
let's go. So I did that for 5 years, thought that was the dream job, thought that would be like the job for the rest of my life, and slowly began to learn about Replay and what it could do. We've been working on it internally at Mozilla for a while, like on and off, on and off, on and off. And that felt like the unlock. And here I am now.
Nice. So the idea of Replay, it was spawned as an internal project in Mozilla?
Yes.
Cool.
So Replay is in some ways just a classical time travel debugger. And time travel debugging goes back since the beginning of computers. The basic idea is, hey, if we could record the computer, record your software execution, and then be able to play it back, slow it down, we could understand what happened. The only problem is it's really, really, really hard to record software. And the more layers of abstraction we add, the harder it is to do. The more components, the harder it is to do. So time travel debugging, at least for me at Recurse Center, was the land of like academia, demo projects, and functional languages. Like, okay, there's something here, but I don't know if we could do this in the browser. Now, Mozilla, coming from Netscape, has this like hacker mentality where it's one developer against the world, like trying to understand SpiderMonkey, the JavaScript engine, or the graphics engine. And it's almost an impossibly large task. So they had built a time travel debugger. So there's RR coming out of Mozilla in around 2010, 2012. And that's been in production and used, across the industry now. And that's sufficient for looking at a single C++ program. But how do you take RR and then go to the browser for web? Mozilla would try, stop, and eventually, like, okay, this is too difficult. It really took somebody like my co-founder, Brian Hackett, who is just one of these few people in the world who could take the browser, put it in their brain and understand it with enough focus to work on it for 5 years and eventually crack that code.
I don't want to oversimplify the problem, but were there a few key concepts that really unlocked the ability to build replay?
Yeah, we're totally cheating. So there are a bunch of different levels to think about. At the highest level, everyone starts by saying, okay, I want to record JavaScript. JavaScript is really flexible. I've got like proxies. I can monkey patch any class. Great. I'm going to capture mouse clicks, look at API calls, those kinds of things. That is never going to work. You run into all these timing issues and the system's just too complex. So then you drop down a level and you say, okay, what if I'm the browser? Well, the browser opens up all these APIs and I can capture the inputs and outputs, all of them. Basically like the DOM, document dot whatever. Cool. So you start doing that and you realize, oh my God, the system is so complicated. Any one of these things could change and it's not going to work. Then you go down a level lower and you say, all right, what if I'm just the JavaScript engine and I can look at all the execution within the engine, like the compile step where we have the bytecode, every operation that's happening. Yeah, you can do some stuff there, but you're just one piece. You're like the heart in a larger system. And there are a bunch of other organs out there, and you need to know about them too. Graphics network is competing as well. So we go to the very bottom of the system. We say, what is the input and output to the browser? Because the browser is a collection of C++ programs making system calls. It does make dir, read, write, pipe, socket open. There's a very defined list, and we capture the inputs to those. And then we look at the output, save that to disk. We also capture things like C++ atomics, mallocs, and a couple other indirections, like the IPC stuff, inter-process communication. And that set, system calls, atomics, inter-process communication, is the set of non-determinism, which we need. It's like the set of randomness we need to then plug back in and then re-execute the same result.
So you had to go pretty far digging to find the layer where it made sense to make replay.
That's right. You start off like, things should be fine. Oh God, no. What about here? Oh God, no. And then you're like the 7th layer and you're like, okay, a little bit of inline assembly can get you a long way.
Yeah, I myself, I don't think I would know where to dig. So
No.
it takes a very special point of view to even know where to dig.
Yeah, and I'm not that person. I'm the person who's like, yo, I got to rewrite the debugger in React. That is the unlock to update the UI. Brian, my co-founder, is literally at that level of like inline assembly. And then, okay, there was a slight timing issue in how graphics is talking to networking. Cool. I can look at it and figure out what's going on and then do a small fix.
That's awesome.
Another way to think about it, just to go in the completely other direction, is a lot of code doesn't need to be recorded. You take a very simple function, you give it the inputs, you run it, and you get the same output every single time. And that's really important because a typical replay is going to be really tiny because there's not that much randomness in our code. React is going to re-render the same way every single time. We only need to capture the places where there's like a timer or some other like, oh, there's a clock here. Cool, we'll get that. API call, cool, get that.
So you have to do some sort of like analysis, like static analysis of the code in some way to pinpoint like, hey, these are like potentially points of randomness? Or is it's just all hooked into those lower level APIs? Is like when this is called in this way, then we know this is like a set timeout kind of thing and we can isolate that.
Yeah, it's like a mathematical property. We don't have to understand the networking layer as long as we can ensure that the networking layer is deterministic.
Right.
And if there's any non-determinism we're not capturing, just insert that one API call. We're like, cool, wrap this atomic. Or, oh shit, it's dropping down and making a libc call we don't know about. Cool, we need to intercept that one too, because we need like pipe or mixture. The crazy thing is we started with Firefox, but then we're like, can we do Chrome? And Chrome uses the same system calls that Firefox does. So at that layer, porting the recorder to Chrome wasn't so bad.
Oh, so Replay can do Chrome now too?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It opens up a lot of possibilities around like programmatic recordings too. So you're recording CI, writing arbitrary scripts and recording those as well. We can record Node. Node is in some ways like a subset of Chrome as well, just V8 with a little bit of a wrapper around it.
Oh, wow. So Replay is becoming less a time travel debugger for the browser and more just a time travel debugger at this point.
We think recording is just a primitive for any kind of runtime. I would love to capture Ruby. I would love to capture Python. If you go to Python, you're beginning to talk with the scientific community, and that's fascinating.
Yeah. Honestly, mind-blowing. Like, I think me and Justin are reeling.
Yeah. Trying to think of the implications here. Okay, so from a product perspective, you're building a developer tool here, and it makes sense to focus on browsers first and hit this like big target audience. But the experience of debugging something like Node or potentially Ruby in the future and potentially Python in the future are slightly different, less maybe visual. Does that change how you think about approaching the product? Or is it mostly just the same?
That's a great question. So I think the visual piece is really interesting. And maybe we should back up and talk about what it's like to use Replay to debug a React app. And then we can like transfer that to debugging like a Python script or a Node script or something else. So I worked on the debugger long enough on Firefox to know that people don't use it. You would go to people and you ask them like, hey, do you use breakpoints or do you use print statements? Do you use the debugger or do you use the console? And everyone, regardless of experience, will be like, oh, I kind of use print statements. I feel bad about it. Like the most experienced engineers would be like, that's what I do. And I'm too old to change. And then like juniors are like, I know I should because the really good developers I respect must use a debugger. I just haven't taken the time to understand it. So we started off with Replay thinking, if we just came to people and were like, A, you're doing it wrong, and B, we've got something better and more powerful, like it wouldn't work.
Right.
For all the human psychology reasons. And then also there are some fundamental limitations with breakpoints. So what are they? Like the first one is you pause and you're looking at one point in time. Okay, well, I kind of need the chronology. And then the second is, cool, I can go forward, but I really want to go backwards. If the car crashed and you're paused like with like the car at the tree, that's not really the problem. The problem is like, why did we veer off the road, which is in the past? And the debugger doesn't help you with that. So what we wanted to do with Replay was build a debugger that's really providing better print statements. And the problem with print statements is, well, first you have to have the code. Then you have to edit the code. So you have to like know where to go. And then you have to rebuild the code, refresh, like rerun, reproduce the problem. And then you have to look at the logs. And we've all had this experience of like, you have too few logs. You're like, I'm missing it. And then you add more and you're like, God, what am I doing? I'm like scrolling through this thing, needle in the haystack kind of problems.
Yep.
And every time you run it, you could get different results. So you're thinking like, am I really doing science? Or is it definitely bad science? Because like the thing is changing out from under me. Maybe it's not the same every time. So with Replay, we think of it a little bit like record the thing once. And maybe you don't even record it. Maybe somebody else on your team saw something, they send it to you and like, hey, can you take a look at this? Or somebody like writes up a bug report and you're like, can you send me a replay so I can see what you saw? So you get this replay. And then you go to the line of code that you think is interesting. And then you add a print statement and you immediately see the logs. You don't have to like refresh and rerun. You just see them. And then you have the logs in the console and you're wondering like, hey, which one is interesting? And instead of having to guess and play computer, you can just click on the log. And because we have the video, you get to see what the app looked like exactly at that point in time. So that video is really good for confirming or rejecting the hypothesis.
Yeah, it's so magic.
Yeah. I guess given how you explained how it works now, I think before you said that, I would have thought, oh, it's somehow editing code to put in console log statements. But I have a feeling now that it's actually just doing some assembly something. Like, since you don't actually know what the code is doing, you're doing something that's way removed from the code.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that. So we've got this React app. We've recorded it. We can watch the video. Maybe the video is like 30 seconds. I can click anywhere in the timeline and be at that point in time. But don't think of it as like I'm at like second 10. We measure time with 32 zeros of precision because computers operate like billions of operations a second, and this thing's flying. So if you add a print statement on line 52, you can see all the times it was hit, like all the logs in the console. You click one, you're paused at that point in time. Now you say, I want to go back from line 52 to 51. We don't have complicated operations to like unwind JavaScript. We just play the program back to that point in time. It's literally like there's a browser in the cloud, and we say, hey, run and play to this point and then stop. That's what we know how to do. We know how to do that really, really well. And what's good about that is it's just like you did the same thing. Like you edited your code, you opened the debugger, you added a breakpoint, you ran it, you paused, and you're paused there. And because we actually have a browser that's paused there, you can like evaluate, you can look at the call stack, you can see what the variables are, everything is available. So breakpoints, it's literally the debugger going in and like, how many times was that hit? Cool. Print statements, it's literally us bringing a browser to each one of those hits and evaluating that log at that point in time. Like there's no shortcut. We just do it.
That's pretty magical. And it's often a thing that happens in debugging, right? It's like you hit a breakpoint, and exactly what you said earlier is like, I don't actually want to know what happened right now. I want to know what happened earlier. So it's often what you do is like, okay, now I'm going to set this other breakpoint and I'm going to rerun, and I'll like check at this point, and then I'll check at this point, and then I'll just like kind of keep rerunning my program over and over, kind of isolate it down a little bit. So it's pretty magic that you can have like this.
Even you saying that's stressing me out. Like, oh God, I know what it's like to be in a debugger. And you're like, okay, this is the fourth run in the loop, I think. So I'm like, pause, confirm, like, that's not it. Resume, pause, like, is that right? No, next, next. Oh shit, I missed it. Okay, I gotta try again.
If you already support Chrome, I'd assume it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to support Electron.
Yeah.
A lot of people are building apps in Electron these days, and it seems like that'd be an interesting place to benefit from this.
Electron would be fascinating. So yeah. Electron is a front end and a back end at the same time. You've got a browser and Node together. And what I think is really interesting about Electron is it's a way to prototype recording two processes, like the front end and the back end, at the same time. And if you imagine like visualizing the two, if the browser makes a request to the back end, you want to log that, jump to the back end, see how the back end handles that request, look at that, and then come back. And so if you think about replay in the future, it's really about recording all the services. You got your front end and then all the microservices on the back end, and then stitching that together and understanding it.
That'd be super powerful.
Yeah. So yeah, that's like the ultimate end state of replay is being able to debug a whole stack for you.
No, that's not the end state.
Oh.
So the nice thing about the microservice architecture is that a lot of these services are using different frameworks. So if you have a search engine like Algolia, that's a service, translation over there, commerce over there with Stripe. If we can begin to understand these services, so the semantics on top of it. For instance, like on the front end, we can already do React DevTools. Like we understand React semantics. But over time, we could do the same thing for all libraries, all services. Then we have a much richer data set. So it's not just, I want to add a print statement. It's, I want to look at the Algolia searches and then what it's doing with the database, how it's indexing. And then it's a question of, so what is our corpus of replays like for Algolia across your use case, but then all the others? If we can compile a data set of a million replays of Algolia or a million replays of Stripe or a million of like Stripe and Algolia working together in that communication, then we have something really fascinating.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Leveraging the ecosystem networking effects there reminds me a lot. And I think we talked about this the last time we talked about like dependency management tools like Renovate also have this thing where they can check how many, like when a version of a library is released, how many like consumers that use Renovate to update their things, how many of their CIs fell. And then they can give a confidence score over the whole ecosystem of, oh, well, maybe this is a bad release because like 70% of all the CI in the ecosystem fails. It sounds like that sort of similar thing at like a debugging level could be something that Replay taps into.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you fast forward and the no code movement is bringing us to this place where we're really thinking about these services working together. And it's the communication between them. Like you already have this with libraries where you're writing less and less of the total stack. And it's all about how well you're using them. And then what it's like to be a maintainer, thinking about that change. And like, am I confident this is going to work? If I had access to the million replays, I can check to see, does this function ever receive parameters that I don't expect? And if it does, okay, then I want to try those too before I'm sure this is going to work.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, but as a library author, that could be really powerful, especially for, say, someone doing something as complex as the React team. That code base is certainly non-trivial. Figuring out when they can safely make changes on particular parts would be challenging. I know they do a lot of internal testing at Facebook, but a tool like Replay, especially with a large sort of corpus of data, could be interesting.
So we do print statements right now, but that's the simplest thing for users. Because we're replaying the runtime, we have all the memory. Like we could look at the heap. We can look at the performance profile of how React is working. And let's say you want to understand where React is slow and you're the React team. You can now do analysis on this corpus and see, wow, when we're slow, this is the memory footprint. And then you go one step lower, and let's say you're the V8 team, and you want to see how to make V8 faster for when React is slow. Now you can see, wow, the way we're doing garbage collection in this case with these proxies because of these React apps and the code that they're writing, we've got to improve that too. And you could do that all in an automated fashion. In the same way that you query a database, you could just like query our recordings just as a set of data. Do dynamic analysis, do static analysis against it.
I imagine the tricky part there would be, well, generally depending on what data you expose, is just like privacy concerns, just making sure that you're not exposing like the value of an API parameter or something, an API key that's going to.
We have the potential, because we capture everything in the environment, right? All the session data. It's really, really important to be paranoid about privacy. But I think we could flip it. So let's say we know that this field is private. Like, okay, there's an access token here, or your password field here. That's really important to be private. But how is it being used? So there's this dynamic analysis technique called data taining, where you say this value is bad. Now, who used that value? Did that get concatenated into a larger string? Okay, now that string is bad. Where did that string get used? Oh, it got used in this function. Did that variable ever leave the system like through an API call? That'd be really bad. So right now, a lot of the privacy approaches or security approaches are static analysis. But our languages are really flexible, and static analysis only gets you so far. We can flip it and say, hey, we can give you the tools to understand if you're really respecting user privacy or if you're really thinking through security. And by the way, that same tool is useful if you're trying to figure out, like, why did I have a null value here? Well, that null value came from this operation, which came from that operation, and it's the same backtracing through the system. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it definitely does. Like with
Yeah.
CIs, most CIs you can't print secret values, but
Right.
you can print them if you base 64 encode them, and then you're still printing it because you only had to hop through one hoop.
Yeah. So that should be tainted as well. And that would never leave the system for sure. Going back to this idea of like a corpus of recordings, just to get to that like end state goal. So in the future, we've got recordings for all the services. Great. I can like debug the system as a whole. I don't have to like pause here, pause there, log here, log there. We've got a corpus of recordings, which is really good for that kind of service. So I can understand that service like in aggregate. But the really, really interesting end state is to hand that data to computers. So the way like self-driving got good, the way the GPT and OpenAI got good was you build a GAN where the computer can play the game again and again and again and try different strategies. So the origin story for OpenAI is they got their hands on a million recordings of Dota 2. And the reason Dota 2 put a recorder in the game is like if you lost the game, you would go back and play again against AI. You were like, oh, what if I try this different strategy? Cool. That'd be better, that'd be worse. When OpenAI got that data, they were able to say, like, I'm going to train on that. And I'm going to play that game long enough until I realize this would be the best strategy. We have the ability to hand replays to computers and have them do the debugging for us in the future. Because we can replay, you can play to a point in time and then try shit. That's where things get really, really powerful.
That's when it transcends into true magic.
Yeah, that is literally true magic. You won't have to debug your programs anymore. It just tells you, oh, like you should probably look at that line. That'd be crazy.
Step one, the computer says, hey, I noticed some anomalies. So like you run your test, the test passes, but your test only has certain asserts. Like maybe you're not checking to see if that button is a different color or if that API calls me. Even though that API call would be terrible, but like, you don't assert that because you didn't think of it. The computer can say, hey, I noticed that there was this like anomaly here, and all of a sudden this seems weird. You might want to look at that. So it tells you something's different. Step two, it says, hey, I think this anomaly is happening because of this new line of code. Like you change this line of code over here in this React component, and all of a sudden this API call is made to like delete user. Not good. Step three, if you adjust that code, like you add an if statement or you adjust the condition of the if statement, that no longer happens. If we can get to that point, then software is like quote unquote self-healing, where we are building the system, maybe with the assistance of computers, but the maintenance of the system is also coming from computers as well.
Yeah. That's a super interesting idea. It's really coming at the problem from a completely different direction than I've seen before. Like the big news this week, Justin's going to cover it later in the show, is GitHub Copilot, which is the same, but for writing code instead of debugging code. If you're using both of those tools at the same time, you're just playing with the computer to output a program. It's crazy.
Yeah, I see Copilot, and I think that's what we can do now because we've spent so much time thinking about the static analysis piece. We can do the same thing on the debugging side with Replay. We're just a couple years off from that.
Yeah, so that definitely
Awesome.
I think answers one of my questions I was going to ask of where does monetization come from in replay? Because like, what you guys currently have out is like probably you could monetize it, but I think where our conversation just led is definitely more the monetization route you'll go.
All right, I'll spell it out. So step one, you build something for teams. Because as a developer, like I might not be looking for a better debugger right now because I use print statements, but what I would love is to get a replay so I don't have to reproduce something. So we solved the whole like reproduce problem, the whole works for me thing. And that by itself as a collaboration tool is like Figma. Figma's brilliance was like, you don't have to be a designer to be part of the designing process. And we're saying like, you don't have to be a developer to help out with the debugging process. Everyone has context. Everyone wants to be a part of it. In fact, you can even fix more like low grade issues like loading and scrolling because it's easy to capture, easy to discuss. And you're like, oh, there was a style sheet issue. Cool, we could fix that. So that by itself, Figma's a $10 billion business. Great. We could do collaboration on the debugging side. That is valuable. At the same time, we can also use replay in the open source context. So every bug report to an open source project gets a replay. You do that, and the life of being an open source maintainer is just so much easier. Everyone on the team has been an open source maintainer. We know what it's like to get a bug report from someone you don't know with a project that you don't have access to, and you're expected to help them. If we could use replay to help there, and also help in Discord, Twitter, Slack, Stack Overflow, dev.to. So anytime anybody has a question, they could ask it with replay, and anybody in the community could help them. That would go a really long way too. Imagine being a student, writing your first React app or Hello World something. You're not sure, but you could share with another person in the class and they could look at the replay and help you. That would be huge. That's not like a classical monetization strategy, but it's just our way of saying, let's get replay into the world and reach as many people as possible. So collaboration is like stage one. Stage two, we're doing things in CI. We can record our tests, end-to-end tests like Playwright tests and Cypress tests can be recorded. You could begin doing things there that are really interesting. Same with Node on the back end. So like more recordings coming in, more analysis coming in. That gets you into prod a bit. So you're a little bit like Datadog and Honeycomb as well. Nobody wants issues in prod to take a while, and replay can help there too. Like if Datadog points out that, oh shit, like search is breaking, or Honeycomb points out search is breaking, you could find a replay for that search service, click in, and be in the replay and debug it. Don't use Datadog and logs to figure out what's going on. Just use them to detect the problem and then jump into the replay and debug it from there. That's fun because the APM space is bigger and prod is bigger. But then that last step is do what Tesla and Google have done, and now GitHub with Copilot, and take that data and do real analysis and real search and real AI to automate away debugging entirely. You can't start there. You need the data set, and you really need the people telling you like, okay, so this is what the kind of bugs we care about are, and this is the kind of fix. But eventually you're getting to that end state. And if you do that, I mean, that's huge.
I mean, even, I don't know, when I first saw the demo, and if anybody hasn't seen a demo, you should go to replay.io and check out the demo. But I can't tell you how many times in the past where it's like, oh, we come across a bug. It's like, oh, wait, I think this is similar to a bug that we've already fixed in this other ticket. And you go back into the ticket and it's not really well documented. And he's like, okay, what even pull request is this associated with? What was happening? But the value of being able to have a replay, so I have a link, I can see the conversation that happened, I can see what was actually going on, I can see the recording, all of that together is incredibly valuable. Just that, if you never get past that phase and you're just doing the collaboration on debugging, that is an incredibly, incredibly valuable tool, because it's like, I've said this before, but I don't think people appreciate how much of a developer's time is spent debugging. Like, a lot of time.
Yeah, you add up debugging and communicating, and you add a really big slice. So if I go to you, I'm like, hey, how does the app bootstrap? You'd be like, oh, what part are you thinking about? And if I handed you that replay, I'm like, hey, is this function being used while bootstrapping? Or how's it being used? You can go in and you can answer that. And then fast forward 3 months when that code is completely different. You're like, is that the same problem? Just go back and look at that replay from 3 months ago. You're like, oh yeah, that is doing the same thing, or it's doing something different.
Yeah, that's fascinating. This is magical. It's magical. So out of curiosity, how's your reception been so far? What have people been saying about replay? Was there anything surprising that has come out of it?
Gosh. I think what's so fun for me is we had been working on replay at Mozilla for 3-5 years in private. We didn't know if it would ever be successful, and talking about it made everyone else nervous. Are you promising things that we can't do? And over the past year, working on replay in public and having conversations like this is just magical, because everyone comes in, they're like, how does this work? Like, how does this work? What can I do with this? Can I inspect an element at a certain point in time, I really want to see at like minute 30, how does this look? Like, yeah, but how does that node picker work? Having those conversations has been the most special thing for me to share it. And I think the funniest thing is you talk to somebody who's not in tech and they're like, oh, you're recording. That's like a video, fine. But then you talk to somebody who works on V8 or is like a tech lead for Chromium or is building Replit or Code Sandbox or Cypress, who's like really in the internals, and seeing them freak out. We're like, what have you done? And can we use replay inside of Replit and inside of Sentry or inside of Cypress or inside of any number of tools? That to me is the most surprising and exciting. You can throw away our UI where you're adding print statements and you're reviewing the code and forget about that. That's all open source. And think about, how would VS Code use replay? We have those APIs. How would Sentry or Cypress use replay? We were talking to two folks on the Lighthouse team yesterday about how you could use Lighthouse to see an audit. And the biggest problem with auditing your app is the audit that's ran yesterday is going to be different than the audit that's ran today. Even if you run them at this, like one right after the other, it's going to be different because your system is a little bit different. Why? So hooking in replay and thinking about how replay can help in that context, that is so surprising and that's so interesting. I mean, on a personal level, we didn't know if developers would like it. We also didn't know if product managers would want to use it too, because if you're a PM, you can take a screenshot and be like, yo, this is bad. And we're asking people to do something a little bit different. And if you're a developer, we're asking you to use a completely new tool and a new workflow. So seeing that reception and seeing teams adopt replay, and like when one team at a company adopts replay, other teams are like, what's this replay you just shared with me? That's really interesting. Can we use that? So that's been really exciting.
It's like the next level of sharing. Like you start out with a screenshot and you're like, I need more than that. And they're like, oh, well, here's a video of it. And it's like, well, I need
Yes.
more than that. And here's everything you could possibly want.
That's exactly right.
It's an incredibly exciting tool. I mean, there are a few like broad category tools that I think are incredibly important for an organization to have. A good issue tracker is important. It's important to like know what you need to work on and to track the things that you need. And it's a communication tool. It's super important. And this is a whole sort of new category because there's a lot of things that people use, like, oh, they'll send you a loom of this like bug, or you get a screenshot, or they try to describe it in a Slack, but it misses all the context. And then, so that's the sort of as we're working on it. And then you have all the like that, all those artifacts get lost over time as you're moving on because they're different than like where you're tracking your issues and everything. But if I can think of a world where I can use linear and I can have replay hooked into linear, I'm like, I'm set.
Yes.
Those are the only two things I want in my life.
I wonder if you could make a loom to descript analogy with like print statements and a replay. Because you send somebody a loom and it's going to have just the video and just the audio. But if you record with Descript, you could drop all the ums. You have all the context. You could literally see the transcript. You're like, oh, that's bad, edit that, tweak that, because it's got more in there. And I think that's what we're doing here. We're like, you want the video, you want the DOM, you want the JavaScript, you want to see the networking data, because those requests are going to tell you a lot too. And then how do we present that to the user so they can make the most sense of what's going on? Tell that story. Okay, this is what the app was really doing.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned Mozilla a bunch. How did Replay spin out of that? The code started there. You said it was developed there for years. Was it open source code that you then just repurposed into Replay the company, or how did that work?
Yeah. So Mozilla is a special place. And what I'll say about Mozilla is before COVID, it was the largest remote culture, so very async. It was, probably still is, one of the largest open source organizations. Almost everyone at Mozilla is working in the open. And there's this hacker mentality where you're encouraged to do big things and take risks. And like you can look at Rust, WebAssembly. There are so many projects that were killed many times before they became real and went into the world. And Replay was like that. So you look at the DevTools team, we had been trying to do replay, web replay, for a long, long time. In fact, our VP of product had my job 5 years before I was doing it, and he had tried to do web replay as well. So there was this culture of let's take big bets, let's try things, even if they're crazy, and see what we can do. The problem with replay is in the early days, it was really, really invasive. It was in every part of the system. So like networking, JavaScript, graphics, every component owner was like, what the hell is this thing? Because we landed it. It was in the code for 2 years. So you use Firefox nightly and click record and do stuff. And every time we got closer, it was like a kid playing the guitar. Great. You want your kid to play the guitar. And then talking about joining a band. No, stay in school. That was the kind of relationship. It's like, okay, we have something. We're ready to go public. Oh God, like don't leave school. Don't join a band. Like, this is scary. This is scary for everyone involved. So that was the relationship. We were really appreciative that we could work on these things. We were like looking up the ladder and we're like, wow, David like totally gets what we're doing. Of course he gets it. Like he had my job. But how do we bring that to the world? And what's so funny about starting a company in 2020, and this is true now, you look around and there's so many DevTools companies, you can start and raise money on breakpoints. I don't think that's ever been true before. And I have been told my entire career, you cannot build a business on breakpoints. And now you can. And that's huge. That's fun.
Yeah, it's been a huge year for funding of developer tools. On our last episode, we had the founders of Fig on, and I bet 10 years ago, if you said a company would get funding for creating terminal autocomplete, like nobody would have believed you.
Like autocomplete as a service probably could be spun out, or you could build some really interesting things there. And you see what Vercel has done, and that's huge. And I look at Figma and I'm like, yeah, it's a design tool, but it's also just a rendering engine, a really, really good one. That's huge. And Cypress has raised $50 million, and they're going to do fascinating things with that. And you just go through that list, which is actually probably a really good segue for Replay. We started last summer. We built a team of 8. So we brought 6 people on, really like the 6 best people we could possibly have found. So the tech lead for the JIT on SpiderMonkey, so an expert at understanding a critical piece of the runtime and working with Brian, my co-founder, who does the craziest things in the runtime. We brought on one of the former tech leads of Babel. I mean, like you could replay the browser, but if you can't debug minified code and then compile code that comes with it, like you don't have something. You need source maps, and Logan's incredible. I can go down the list, just this incredible team. And we have the most incredible designer with 20 years of experience, and 10 years ago, he was like, oh shit, Brett Victor, this inventing on principle thing is fundamental. We need to do something here. So creative programmer, designer, just really, really talented. And we needed everyone to get to the point where Replay would just work. And it was designed in a way that would resonate with product managers and engineers alike. We saw we had a technology that was promising. Like the thing wouldn't crash and people liked it. And it didn't matter if you were at Facebook, where nobody understands what Facebook.com is doing. There are literally 300,000 functions in the page. And over 200,000 of them are anonymous. So that's not good. Or if you're just getting started programming and you're like, what is this thing? So we were talking to everyone. It was clicking both at both extremes. And at that point, we decided, hey, can we build a company around this? So we have this core team. Now, what would it take to build a company around this and really bring it to the world? And we're at the point now where, for me, the most important thing and the thing I'm most excited about is recruiting. We got to bring on our first product manager. the first engineering manager, the first DevRel. Because think about Replay in the context of debugging today. There's such a great story to tell about how the workflow is going to change and how we bring people into that new world. It's just everything. So DevRel is going to be huge. And it doesn't matter if you are really interested in systems programming or runtime platform engineering, and you're just getting started, we want to talk to you too, because this is the ideal environment to work on a runtime where you don't have the pressure of like shipping an upgrade to Node, which like any regression would like be bad. We're building a debugging tool and we're having fun, and you can hack on the entire runtime and understand it and make debugging easier, all the way down from like dev tools, product, collaboration, accounts, library, you name it. So we're building out this really, really supportive team to get us to that next stage.
You heard it here, folks. You're looking for something interesting. That's awesome. I got to say, I'm super excited about this product generally. Replay it's pretty magical. It's pretty magical. I think y'all have hit a really good sweet spot. So I'm rooting for you. I want to use this. Take my money.
Yeah, that about wraps it up for all of our main talking points. Now we'll go to tooltips. So my first tooltip of the week is something to manage all of the other tools that I have downloaded during our tooltip sessions. A problem you might have when adding a bunch of apps to your computer is that your menu bar gets clogged and you can't even tell what you're supposed to click on anymore. This app fixes that problem. It puts all of your toolbar apps into one overflow menu, and then you can control which ones are outside of that overflow menu. So it has helped clean up my toolbar immensely, and I have just what matters on the top now. So that's super nice.
This app being Bartender.
Oh yeah, Bartender. The app we were talking about is Mac Bartender. Take control of your menu bar.
It's a good tagline. They did all right.
Yeah, marketing A+ right there.
I used the open source version, or I did before I sold my Mac.
Oh shit.
I'm unemployed and I don't have a Mac, so
Windows man over there.
Yeah.
Oh no,
yeah.
Replay's not going to work for you.
I know. I'll get a Mac eventually. It's fine. I'll get a Mac eventually.
Hey, we're hiring.
Oh yeah. So my share of the week is if you're at all connected to the tech world, you have heard of this already. We talked about it previously. So GitHub just released this service powered by OpenAI called Copilot. Copilot is an intelligent autocomplete. I seem to recall other companies coming out with similar sort of things. There was one a while back, maybe a few years ago, that released on Hacker News. I remember that blew up. That had a bunch of privacy concerns, and I'm forgetting what the company was called now. But this isn't a unique space, but being that GitHub is doing it, it's a pretty big deal. And we've heard and seen a lot of examples where Copilot's autocomplete is actually really good, like scarily good. And it makes sense if you have a whole corpus of open source to pull from. So yeah, if you're interested in having autocomplete powered by AI, check out Copilot.
Yeah, here data is king, and GitHub's probably in the best place on the internet to access that data.
I think it's really fascinating what you can do with having all of this data just about code bases in general. So we had mentioned Renovate earlier, because it's like leverage in all these places, being able to determine when things are released, if they're breaking or not. I also think about like code search tools. There's a lot of really interesting insights that they can pull out of code bases. Anyway, it's a fascinating topic.
And the team did such a great job on the interface as well. Like it fits right into VS Code and it feels so natural.
Yeah, it's great.
I'd like to promote the Tovala oven, which is a small, smart oven. It's electric, and the world's going electric, so that's great. My wife and I got it at the beginning of COVID when they were running a $100 discount. I think they're still doing that. So you can get this oven for like $160, which like is a lot of money, but for an oven, okay, seems fairly reasonable. And what they're doing is they're giving you 4 different types of heat. So you can like broil, bake, steam is key, and then something that's like called toast. And because everything is electric and it's Wi-Fi and smart, you can plug in a recipe and it's, oh, I'll make your pizza in 13 minutes. I'm going to start with some steam, go to bake, and finish with broil. And it's going to be perfect every time. And the best thing about it is they send you the recipes. So if you're like me and you've got 5 minutes and you don't want to eat this like junk food, you just take it out of the box, put it in the oven, and it cooks a really good meal. And you're like, all right, cool. I've got mac and cheese and some chicken and some cornbread and maybe salmon, and it's got to be tasty.
That's actually
Really
super
neat.
interesting. I follow this one YouTube channel that is all about just like talking about appliances. They recently taught me how to use my dishwasher more effectively. And
Ooh,
yeah, there's a pre-wash bin that you have to put detergent in to make it pre-wash. Who would have guessed? But yeah, this is interesting. Like the microwave space hasn't been innovated on in a very long time. Like they used to come with lots of presets that would do similar things of making steam happen in a certain part to get like the perfect cook. But
yeah.
yeah, I don't think that's been innovated on lately.
Yeah, I think the Tovala got me off of sous vide. I was trying
Oh,
to come up with a perfect whatever. And now with Steam, it's like, okay, this is going to be precise. It's going to be efficient. And efficiency is good if you care about climate and reducing your footprint. And it's easy. So you don't think about it.
that's awesome. I might actually look at picking one of these up. Sounds awesome.
Sweet.
Okay. My last tooltip of the week is something that everybody has liked already, is called Docker. I've been doing a lot of home automation stuff and all my devices broke 2 weeks ago. Don't ask me how. It's a very trying time for me. But in spinning everything back up, I decided to learn Docker and actually spin up everything in Docker containers. And it has been like night and day difference of setup. All these services that I previously had to install like 10 things and run 10 different commands and just pull my hair out over why they're not working is that it's just super simple to spin them up in a Docker container. And at first it seems like all the options that are there are kind of confusing, but once you get a hang of them, it's super powerful. Like I understand why it took the industry by hold now.
What kind of services are you running?
Oh, I have around 10 running right now. They're all for legal media, I swear. I have a downloader, a thing that helps me track TV shows, a thing that helps me track movies. My whole home automation network is based off of HomeKit, but not all my devices
Mm,
support HomeKit. So there's an open source project called HomeBridge where it has a bunch of plugins that make basically anything work with that. And then once you get down that path, it's like, well, I want to make my automation system perfect. So like I even spun up, Justin will recognize this tool, N8N. I spun up a container for that. And I might eventually switch off of IFTT, which I'm using for notifications, onto my own self-hosted N8N thing. So lots of little different things. I got a Plex
I
server
love
running
it.
there somewhere.
Love it.
Yeah, I started out on Raspberry Pis. Like I had literally like a little like 3D printed Raspberry Pi rack with four of them in there, and they were all doing different things. And now it's just been replaced by like thousands of dollars worth of technology. It's crazy how
You
fast it
can run
ramped up.
Docker on Raspberry Pis,
Wow.
if you did not know. You can
Yeah,
Dockerize your Pi.
I like my Synology. I tried doing Plex on a Pi, and it turns out you need a good computer to have Plex do things well for more than one person. So now I run an
Mm,
Intel NUC for that.
that's impressive.
Oh, the Nook is that
Yeah.
really small, like it's relatively small too, but it's like pretty high power.
Yeah, they have some bigger ones. I have the Hades Canyon one, I
Mm,
think. It's like $1,000 one. It literally just runs Plex, and it's never had a
gotcha,
hiccup for
gotcha,
me.
gotcha. Yeah, I remember looking into this a long time. This is just a fun library that I found. It's called Git Peak. It's by Jared Sumner. I just stumbled across it and I thought it was really interesting. The idea is you have this command that like hooks into Git, so it's just Git Peak, and you can put a URL, a GitHub URL, and it'll quickly open it up, so you can see the code without having to think about like, oh, let me clone everything down and pull it in. I just want to open it really quickly. It's relatively simple. One thing that I do like is if you don't provide an argument, it has this like dynamic search functionality where you can search GitHub for things that you
Ooh,
want and then like quickly get a description and open it up and be able to mess around with it. It seems really nice. It's really good. Opens up in your editor and everything. This same user has also created a browser extension, a Peak browser extension that integrates with GitHub. So you just like do Peak and it like opens it up and your editor. It's pretty cool. Yes.
Yeah, so GitHub 1S is, if you notice, I just added 1S at the end of this github.com URL. And if you open that, that actually opens the Monaco browser with that GitHub repository right in your browser. And it's basically the same thing. You don't get your own plugins, but they actually recently implemented search, which I like a lot because you couldn't search before.
That's hot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so this is where I'm going with this too. I'm thinking of Replit. And you say that, I'm like, oh, GitHub code spaces and Replit are going to change the game. What I started doing with Replit recently is I'm looking at a repo. I'm like, this seems interesting. Click. Now I've got a Replit for it, and I can just immediately start playing with it. And being able to quickly get in there and then just like fiddle around, like, oh yeah, I get what this is doing, or like, no, this is not for me, has been huge. The other, which is just really basic, is like webhooks. So if you're using Heroku or any service that has webhooks and you want to quickly play with things, just like start a replit and then point the webhook at that replit. And then you can just run, edit, run, edit, run, and just keep going and seeing how it works. Otherwise, you'd be like, well, how do I publish this thing? Do I need to deploy to Vercel or something? It's going to take some time. Replit, you're just natively in the cloud, and it's so easy to get started.
Yeah, definitely a big fan of Replit. My girlfriend's sister, she is going to college for computer science right now, and all of her classes used Replit. So what she's been doing over the past weekend is learning how to set up the languages she was using on her computer because she's never had to.
Wow.
Yeah.
It gets me excited for the next generation of programmers because there's a lot of stories about wizened programmers who started, it's like, oh yeah, I was 8 and I like learned basic or whatever. But I don't really think like programming generally is always very approachable. Yep. Even people who like can acclimate to it, it has such a sort of high activation energy that you have to break through to get everything set up and running. But tools like Replit, where you can just focus not on all the environment and all the other stuff, but just on the code, just on that one little thing, narrowing your focus down, I think is super powerful.
And the collaboration that comes with it, like, hey, I was just playing with this one thing. Do you know what I should be doing here? Okay, yeah, just like drop in.
Yeah.
Take a look.
Having actual comment threads, like discovering that feature was really interesting. Before that, I was helping out my girlfriend's sister with just like writing comments in the Replit, and then we realized, oh shit, you can actually do comments, like real comments.
I think we still have a running Replit for a lot of our HTTP services in Replay. It was the easiest thing to get started. Why not? If you want to edit it, you just go to Replit and make some changes. The other day, I was working on changing how we send emails with a colleague. We were both in there, like Google Docs, just making changes. Like, I think that looks good. Yeah. Run. And we're like, what is this? This is not GitHub. I'm not going to make a commit and publish and review. Like, we're just playing. And it feels natural.
Yeah.
There's so many people who start there and they're like, you want me to use GitHub and Git? No. Why would I do that?
I think that about wraps it up for the week. Thanks a lot for coming on, Jason. This was a very interesting talk. I think we covered a huge expanse of topics.
I loved it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of DevTools-fm. Be sure to follow us on YouTube and wherever you consume your podcasts. Thanks for listening.